And we are recording. So hi, I'm John King, and I'm here with my partner, Melody Jackson, and another friend and partner, Brett Labit. And Melody and John, we are starting today a project that's very exciting for us, which has to do with talking with people about transitions in their life that has altered their life or transformed their life. And so I'm introducing Melody. Melody, this is Brett. Brett, this is Melody.
Hi,
And
Melody.
Hello, Brett. So happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
few things in life are more kind of fulfilling than introducing great people to each other. And so today, what we're going to do is we're interviewing Brett, and it's all about transitions in your life. And in your case, your vehicle has been something called Thriving Tribe. So I just kind of want to launch it that way. So Brett, love to have you just say, well, first of all, let me go to Melody and have you say a few words to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Brett and we'll start into the interview. Okay, Melody,
All
to you.
All right, thanks, John. Yeah, the main thing that I want to say that's really relevant to this conversation is that I've been an entrepreneur for more years than I'm going to admit to. And I'm so excited about the conversation today because I've really always been kind of a do-it-yourself, on your own, do everything. And I know that it has not really served me in some of the things that I want to accomplish. And that's one of the things that I've really been listening to John on and really exploring, like with his whole leadership, and it's all partnership. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've set up, Brett, about the tribes, so that I, who would also then represent so many other entrepreneurs who do it all on their own, to see how I can actually make that transition and really hopefully have a mindset shift by the end of our conversation. That's what I'm putting out there.
Wonderful. I love it. This is the kind of conversation that I wake up for. So
All right.
excited to be here.
So Brett, just so that people know a little bit about you, that just to give you kind of the sketched in background, Brett is an entrepreneur, has been a lifetime entrepreneur. He owns 3 art galleries, 2 of them in Phoenix and 1 of them in Sedona, Arizona, lives in Scottsdale, Phoenix area, and is the founder of a global entity that he calls Thriving Tribes, which is essentially an ongoing global conversation about entrepreneurship at the level of tribes. So Brett, what I'd like to do is just invite you into the conversation, have you say a few things about yourself, and then we'll kick it right off.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, first of all, it's great to be here with both of you. John, I appreciate and adore our continued friendship and your mentorship. And Melody, it's good to see you again. I know we've been on calls together before. So I'm excited to be here. Just briefly, you know, I'm extremely passionate, as John said, about thriving tribes and about empowering and equipping individuals to build thriving tribes. I started my first business at 18 years old. I went to college for about a week, and I was making more money as an entrepreneur than I could see college was going to get me to. And so out of 3 classes, I think I attended 1 and skipped 2. And so I'm not formally educated, so to speak, but that first business was quite the education. And from there, they just got bigger and better, and the successes, you know, would increase a little bit at a time, and over a lifetime now, I would say I've got pretty good education in business, still much more to learn. As John said, I live here in Scottsdale, and I'm back and forth to Sedona quite a bit, so I've got the best of both worlds.
So Brett, in this conversation, we're going to be talking about tribes, but we're also going to be talking about transitions. Mm-hmm. So what I would love is if you would share the good, the bad, and the ugly regarding, you know, it's one thing to say, well, that was my first business and I learned a lot from it. We want to know, what happened, what did you learn, how did you learn it, and where did you grow? And so if you could kind of take us along your pathway a little bit that way.
Absolutely. Well, when you talk of transition, the biggest one happened 8 years ago for me, but I'll go back a little bit. John, you asked me when we first met, you said, where'd you learn what you know? And I have to say, and I'll just shorten the answer, but cause and effect has been my greatest teacher. I've had mentors, I've listened to the audios, I've been to the seminars. But I found that when I observe life real time and the choices I'm making and the outcomes, that's the greatest teacher. And so in my first business, I was 18 years old. I was still having a great time. I was working hard during the day and drinking hard at night and just having fun. And the first thing I learned is you can't keep both up all the time.
And what was that business?
I was landscaping in Palm Springs. I worked for one of the largest landscape companies in Palm Springs, and they would do all the country clubs. And I noticed that we would go in and do these $1 million jobs on these beautiful $5-10 million homes, and landscape inside, outside, everywhere. And they would leave the courtyard blank. And so I went back behind them, started a little business and started landscaping courtyards. I'd work about 4 hours and make $1,000 in the 80s.
Wow.
And and probably most important during that time, because I obviously didn't save any of the money. I had a fun life. The people that I worked for, they owned casinos, they owned pharmacies, they were all entrepreneurs. And with the people I worked with in the job, they would scatter when the owners came home. And I would be covered in mud and dirt, and I would go up and shake hands with the owners and introduce myself. They would invite me into their homes. They would give me the keys to their home. Brett, you can come here anytime. And I got to know these serious entrepreneurs. And I just started learning at a young age what that was all about.
That's excellent. So the thing that went through my mind immediately is, now you were what, a teenager then still?
Yeah.
Late teens? Okay.
Yeah.
You must have already had this artistic sense, this sort of aesthetic sense as well.
Well, to a degree, I like to build things. I like to work with things that have tangible results. And so, the landscaping business led to construction and eventually in the last crash into real estate prior to the crash. But I've always been fascinated with building things and very strategic. So yeah, I like to create, I like to innovate, I like to solve problems. And when you're young and you don't have maybe a great base to solve those problems with, you got to pay attention, you got to learn fast. And so, I work 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, most of my life, and I accelerated my learning. And I think that's one of the keys.
So Brett, one of the things that happened was you went to school for about a week.
Yep.
And so you obviously had some kind of an intention when you went to school, and then something happened that had you change your mind. And I'd be interested to hear how it occurred for you. Did it occur for you as a failure? Did it occur for you as a move forward or up? The idea of saying, getting, an advanced formal education is not for me.
Well, that's a great question. Honestly, John, throughout my life, because of the way I think we can be programmed, I look back, I'm 50 years old today, and I look back and I think in the last few years, I've eased up about regret. But it seemed like it was like what you were supposed to do. So I carried this guilt for most of my life that I wasn't accomplished because I didn't, really pursue the education. Today, I'm not too concerned about that, but it stayed with me for a long time. And I don't think I really, in fact, I think I enrolled to begin with because of other people's expectations. They weren't really mine. And, I think it's a happy day when you start living your life for yourself versus what everyone else wants you to do. And for me, despite the fact that I didn't take the higher education path, it took up to 48 years old probably before I let that go.
I think there's also something that's happening in the culture where more and more people are starting to tap into their personal passions and interest and starting to see that as improving the quality of life by doing something that you really love.
Yeah.
And, it sounds like that's something that you, even maybe if you felt the judgment or whatever and had the judgment on yourself about not moving forward, there was still a way in your life in which you were expressing and doing something that you really loved.
Right.
And for me, that's a big thing about the transitions, because a lot of people will wait until they have a certain level of accomplishment in life. And they used to call it a midlife crisis. And at that point, they say, is that all there is? Is this all there is? Where's my fulfillment, my happiness? And then they make that transition. So that's another reason John and I wanted to kind of look at this and talk to people who've done it. So what would be another transition? So let's say you move from the landscaping, at some point there's going to be another transition. So is there something you can share about that?
Yeah. I'll skip to one of the major ones. Of course, speaking about the education, prior to real estate and after real estate is when my biggest transition took place. But prior to real estate, I was working in sales to fill in and doing extremely well in sales. But I had a friend up in Spokane, Washington. His name is John, and John was a computer programmer, a six-figure income, living the dream at that time, according to, what he had studied for. And one day I talked to John, and John said, well, I said, how's computer programming? He said, I don't do that anymore. I go door to door and I wash windows. And I reacted the way you would. I was like, what? He said, yeah, I take my shirt off. I'm out in the sun. I make a couple $100 a day. I meet cool people and I have no pressure.
Wow.
And it fascinated me. So I got a truck, I got a ladder, I got a bucket. And long story short, that turned into a pretty large regional janitorial company. But I started like John. I was just knocking on doors, washing windows, built up a clientele of over 400 residential. We ended up taking care of Staples and Office Depot and Walmarts and Walgreens all over the Northwest. And we ended up exiting that company. And I went into freedom washing windows and then right back into control and pressure, running a company, which tends to be my pattern. But that led me to my first CEO position where I was recruited and paid well and papered up and all of the trappings of what people would call success in corporate America as a CEO with no college education. So I remember when the company talked to me and they found me, they said, it's odd that you don't have an education, college education, but you're highly recommended and your results speak for themselves. And that was a big transition because I still hadn't broke the thought process of the guilt of not getting my education, but I did have some proving points along the way that were starting to help me reconcile the fact that that was an acceptable path.
I can't help but think of this story of there was a CEO that goes down to Mexico for a vacation, and he's enjoying his week there, and he finds a local fisherman to take us out on his boat, and he's just totally loving it. They get all these fish, they come back, they go out the next day and do it again. And this CEO says, you should really turn this into a bigger business. You really need to charge more, and you could get a whole fleet of boats, and it goes on like this. And the guy says, well, why would I want to do that? And he says, well, then you can make some money, and you can make a lot of money. And he said, yeah, why would I want to do that? So that when you retire, you can come here and you can have a boat and just go out and do what you love all the time. So, it's just kind of interesting how the mindset of making the money, if it's in there, if it's inside of you, it'll be there, but we got to look longer term as well.
That's funny that you say that, Melody. I learned a phrase. I live in Mexico. And so I'm always learning these little colloquial phrases. And this week I learned a wonderful little colloquial phrase in Spanish, but in English, it translates as this. And this is kind of what the fisherman was saying to the CEO. The phrase is, don't put sour cream on my taco.
I love it.
That is
Really, it's like, don't feed me that line. I'm fine where I am.
Yep.
So along the line, Brett, by the way, I have a huge empathy for you. I went to school at the university. I have no understanding why. And I wasn't there for a very long time. When I did not withdraw, I was actually requested to leave by the Dean of Men. And,
that's even better.
Yeah, it was kind of embarrassing because I was getting ready to register, and I was in a line with probably 30 or 40 friends and classmates and all of that sort of stuff. And this guy came in and said, Mr. King, you need to take your party elsewhere. You have been suspended. And so I left school, and like you, I felt guilty about it. And I didn't get over my guilt about it until I was on a fluke appointed to be on faculty at the University of Southern California. And finally made my mommy happy.
Yeah.
Like that. So there you were. And, growing and changing and learning business and so on like that. And at some point, the context or the concept of tribe occurred to you, and it occurred to you in a way in which you took it on and you began generating yourself from it. Talk to us about that.
Okay, great. Yeah. So the CEO position went well for a while. The company had just, blown through $20 million, and the board did in a short period of time. I was CEO of an affiliate of theirs, and so it's a long story. But anyway, long story short, company's crashing, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with myself? So I get involved in real estate in 2005, and it is a massive boom going on. I had no idea. I was buried in my project, and I had no idea what the real estate market was doing. But anyway, within a year, I was one of the top agents in Boise, Idaho, and selling a lot of homes and investing in properties. And then the crash came in 2008. And when the crash came, I held on probably a little bit longer than I should have, because all my life I'd been programmed, you never quit. I've learned now in life, sometimes you need to quit. And my heart disconnected from real estate in 2008. I stayed till 2011. And so my income, my assets, everything just went away. And I actually went into kind of a what you'd call a dark place. I questioned everything. I was bitter and cynical. For a small period of time, I pointed a lot of fingers at other places and people and things. And quite frankly, was just done. I was spent. And I remember I was married at the time. And I remember looking at my wife in the eyes, and I said, I'm done. You might want to go find a real man. And she's, you know, of course, was very gracious, very sweet, but ultimately that's what ended up happening. I hit the bottom, and we split, and I had to start asking myself some serious questions. And I remember I had about 15 minutes of depression. That's all I allowed myself. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I laid down on the bed, middle of the afternoon, and just wanted to go to sleep. And I woke up in about 15, or I got up in about 15 minutes. I never actually slept. And I had a dry cleaning receipt on my nightstand. And I picked it up and grabbed a pen, and I wrote, in my pain and chaos, I almost missed my defining moment. And I think I still have that receipt somewhere. But that was a major turning point for me. I got up, I put on my suit, I went out, I got a job. It was a really tough job market at the time. And I started questioning, because all my life, and this can be a challenge for people. All my life, even in my early teens, 13, 14, 15, my parents' friends kept saying things like, Brett, you're brilliant. You're the smartest guy I know. Oh my gosh, you could run any company. And I'm believing these things along the way. But if I was so smart, how in the hell did I end up where I was? And I had to ask myself that. And in the process, I did a lot of self-reflection, introspection. Quite frankly, I started taking things that I'd learned from books and people and just throwing them out, or working them to prove them and vet them to see what files I was carrying around that weren't serving me. If I'm so smart and the things I've learned are so accurate, then why am I here? And that was the single largest transition point in my life. And through the introspection and through some deep study of personal success, I came to the conclusion that collaboration was the key to long-term success.
And from that point, the 15 minutes where you just were ready to give up, and where you were in that spot to the point that you realized collaboration is the key, how long was that period of time?
It was 6 months. It was 6 months, because the deep dive into myself was a long, painful one.
Yeah, I want to, before we get into the whole aspect of the tribes and have you elaborate on that, I really want to mark this point, because I think that I have a theory, and I'm still sort of testing this out and exploring it, that when we, to really get to our heart's desire, a lot of times it takes that moment where in the hero's journey, everything is lost, you give it all up, and you ask that kind of question. Like, if I'm so smart, why am I here? I've asked myself that question in certain situations. I've done all this, but it means nothing. But it's like hitting that dark night of the soul.
Yep.
You have nothing to do but go inward. You can't look outside because they've given you the answers that are not working. But I think in these transitions, what I've seen is that to truly get to moving forward on your heart's desire, if you've already been not doing that for so long, that it takes something like that. And then the question is, but how long do you need to stay there? Is there a way to get there without something really traumatic or dramatic? It's like, how can we either facilitate that is there a way we can facilitate it without hitting the bottom with a huge health crisis or whatever? So I think that's, it's just so great to mark that point, that
Yeah.
this is a critical aspect of this transition into whatever's next, this life's calling, your heart's desire, and for as long as that lasts.
I agree with you. I think that's really well stated. Uh, Out of that particular incident, you could say that he formed his character.
Mm-hmm.
He actually spent 6 months reflecting, creating a whole new set of virtues to practice. Virtue forms character, character unfolds destiny. So the next piece would be, what happened out of that? What destiny did you unfold out of these deep and profound reflections and realizations that you had while you were going through the dark times?
Perfect. Well, first of all, Melody, I agree with both of you. I have studied my own life looking back, and I'm pretty resolute about the fact that pain is my best catalyst. Yeah. So many people think that this exciting dream ahead is what propels them, but you can almost live it imaginatively without having to get it. It's the pain of being disconnected from it. If it doesn't cause enough pain to be disconnected from it, that's what happened to me. I was in immense pain. My entire life was built around this idea of what success looked like. So when that picture was painted, I don't know if either of you remember this movie, but The Secret of My Success with Michael J. Fox. He goes from the mailroom to CEO in 2 hours, right? So that was my, idea. Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey. This was my paradigm of success, and I was none of those people. So I had tremendous pain, and that was the catalyst to cause me to look inward as to why I was deferred from the things that I really wanted. And where it took me is to the study of how the greats achieved and sustained their success. And one of the people that I really dove into was Napoleon Hill, because he had studied all of the greats over a long period of time. And what I got from that, maybe I didn't get a ton from it, but what I got was this concept of organized effort and energy. They would gather people together and they would organize effort and energy. And that began, and I didn't buy everything from Napoleon Hill. Today, as a practice, don't subscribe to every thought of any one teacher, person, individual. I vet things for myself. I like to think that I'm an independent thinker today, always working more and more towards that. So anyway, I'm going through this study. I extract out of Napoleon Hill organized effort and energy, and begin forming the idea of what it would look like to build a thriving tribe.
And when you say the organized effort and energy, is that around the whole concept of the mastermind that he talks about, or is it a different aspect of what he writes about?
It's two parts of the mastermind. It's the mental, intellectual mastermind, and it's physical action. They both have to be present. And as much as people think they understand collaboration, it has been my experience that we do not collaborate well without an awareness of how to do that.
And that's what I'm waiting for, because that's what I need. So do tell.
All right. So many times when we're talking about tribe, first of all, I think people think it's something they get to choose. Build a tribe, don't build a tribe. It's not something you get to choose. You're doing it by default all the time, anytime, every time. And there are different ideas around tribes, like the size of a tribe, 100 people, 150 people. My poker playing tribe, my tennis tribe, those are tribes. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I look at tribe as a holistic ecosystem. And it's not something, it's everything. It's everything that I interact with. Myself, others, things, my environment. It's a geography. And I'm in the center of that. Kind of jokingly, but not so much. I would tell people that whoever said the world doesn't revolve around you didn't really understand the world. Because it certainly does. And in the concept of tribe, it does revolve around you. You're at the center of your tribe, and your world revolves around you. And how you interact with it is going to make a difference. So first off, everyone has a tribe, whether they know it or they're not aware of it, they have a tribe. Secondly, it's a whole different art to convert it to something that's thriving, a thriving economy or ecology, thriving relationships, thriving opportunities, thriving economics. You know, those things require conscious awareness. So it could be said that there are some written or unwritten rules that govern thriving tribes. And I'll just pause there for a second.
Well, good. So that's a great tee up for really launching into the program, or the question that gets at the heart of, not a question to be answered, but a question to be inquired into, to unfold, called What is a Thriving Tribe?
Great question. So the interesting thing about that question is each of us have to answer it for ourselves.
Yes.
What do you want your thriving tribe to be? You could isolate yourself from the world, from people, from things, and have 2 to 3 close people, and there's your thriving tribe if it's thriving by your definition. But I've listed in the trainings of what a thriving tribe is some general categories that people might want to measure if they're engaged in life, they're grouping with people. So it's things like financial, relationship, romantic, impact, camaraderie, or belonging, right? So you start looking at these major areas of life that are important to you, and give yourself a score from 1 to 10. If 10 is thriving, or just I'm having the best possible experience belonging I can, and then that's a 10. I'm sorry, I think someone's knocking on my door there. But so if someone's having the best possible experience that they can, that might be a 10. If you are not having that experience in belonging, you're at a 4 or a 5, then you have to ask yourself the question, what would it take for me to be thriving in the area of belonging? And then you start to bring that culture into the tribe.
So let me see if I can kind of summarize what I'm getting, because again, I just relate to myself as this sort of lone wolf for the most part. And part of it is I just haven't thought about it in the way that you talk about. John calls it partnership a lot of times, and we've been talking about that some. And I'm wondering, this is not my question to ask right now.
Go ahead. We'll get Melody's comment. You go get the door.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that, where was I?
You said that you were a lone wolf. I'm doing partnership. He's doing tribes.
Right. And the thing that I'm seeing here, one, is that, as really both of you have said, we already have these partnerships and these tribes already in place. And for me then, and other people like myself, it's a matter of actually relating to it. Because I know, John, you've talked about partnerships, and everyone that you work with in any way, they're your partners.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I have begun to shift in my thinking. And then with what Brett is saying, the tribes, let's say, I don't know if this is true, but maybe a partnership is 2 people and then tribes are, more than that. I'm not sure. We're still exploring this and you guys can elaborate. But the other thing that I got just from what you're saying there, Brett, is that we have these tribes already in place. So it could be your family tribe, your church tribe, your political tribe. It's like whatever those tribes are that you could just identify. And then to go to the thriving, what I'm seeing is that, okay, now that you identify that you have these tribes already existing, these partnerships already existing, what is it that would have it be thriving, which is what you just said. But it seems also that for me to determine what would be thriving, I would need to identify what's my commitment around it. What do I want it to be? Like I have to get clear on that. And then there's that next aspect of how do I bring that about?
Right. Well, what I've learned is there's this popular dialogue that happens where we say, you've got to grow and you've got to change in life. The truth is you don't. You only do if you want to. If you don't want to go any further than you are, whose requirement on you is that, right? I don't have to grow and I could stay right where I'm at, and maybe I could be happy right where I'm at. And so we all have to ask ourselves the question, what is important to us inside of our interaction in this ecology? And maybe financial success or business growth is important, or relationships or belonging, whatever it is. There are not, I won't say right or wrong. I don't like to use the words right or wrong, but accurate thoughts, activities, and habits that create positive outcomes. And you have to define what those are in the ecology that you want to build. I like what John says about virtue. And I think that building a thriving tribe is the process of finding the balance, the mean between too little and too much. And when it's almost like mastery of yourself. And when you're doing that, you're creating better interaction around yourself, and those circles start to expand and they start to thrive.
For me to have this, to bring this idea to life, again, relating to me as someone who's had this idea of, an entrepreneur as doing everything herself. How do you make that shift? Like, one of my concerns is this idea of if you get a tribe going, a group going, like who's the leader? There's something that I get a little bit hung up on, the actual practical, logistical aspect of it. I'd love to hear from you as well as John on this, because I know some of the distinctions John has around partnership and the kind of relationships there are. So I'd love to hear that, really, as coaching or advice. Like, how do I make that transition where I can really expand my thinking? Like, what does it actually look like?
John, did you want to go first?
No, you go ahead, Brett, and then I'll follow you.
Okay, great. Well, Melody, I love that. I love that question. And for me, who's the leader in the tribe? Well, you are, and they are. They're leading their own tribe. You're part of theirs. They're part of yours. I believe that each of us, it's interesting because most of the training on leadership points to someone like they're the only one, but everyone is leading their own life, or else someone else is leading your life. And tribe is your life. It's an ecosystem like a city, right? A city has certain things that have to happen in order for it to thrive. And we appoint an official to do that. But everyone takes responsibility for themselves in the city, or they should, if it's going to thrive.
Especially
So,
in their area is what I'm kind of
yeah,
picking up on.
right. You know, influence is going up or down with every interaction. So to lead yourself well is a wise choice. And who does that? Well, everyone should. So you get to lead this, but you're not leading people to where you want them to go. You're creating an environment for leadership, and they're going where they want to go. You're facilitating, you're supporting, you're adding value, and people are doing that back to you. So one of the big transitions I made from going from transactional to tribal is becoming authentic and genuine in adding value to people, not dressed up as a gift just to get something, but actually being mindful of the well-being of the people I'm in tribe with.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yes.
You know, when we talk of partnering and partnership, it's not dyadic, it's actually triadic. So
Right.
there's always at least three elements, if not three people, in every partnership. And the partnership is the basic fractal that we build our tribe upon. So it's a continuation of more and more partners. And what you're saying, Brett, this idea about caring for others, taking care of others. This is actually the fundamental shift. You know, everybody's special, and some people are so special that they're special. And there comes a point in the dark night of the soul when you have learned what you've learned, and you begin to reflect on and question your beliefs, where you maybe take on the idea of, would I be willing to give up being special in the interest of being extraordinary?
Absolutely.
Extraordinary begins with caring about or being committed to, it'd be another way of saying it, but in any case, supporting the success of others. So if you take the first stable structure, which is a triangle, and you get that you're in the triangle. For example, we have three of us here. So there is a triangle, but Melody, Brett, John. My job is to actually support the success of the relationship between Melody and Brett. Brett's job is to ensure the success of Melody and John, and Melody is also building and supporting the success of the relationship between Brett and John. That becomes what is called a stable triad or a partnership. And by building ourselves on this, in the next case, let's say that Melody brings someone in. Melody brings in someone that she feels is of a mind that we are thinking about. In other words, they've done the work and they're ready for the conversation. So she brings in this person. Maybe it's her sister or maybe it's a friend, but let's just say it's someone named Bob. Mm-hmm. So she brings Bob in. Her job is to ensure the success of the relationship between Bob and John and Bob and Brett. And our job is to continue to ensure my job is to ensure the success between Brett and Bob and Melody and Bob. And therefore, what has happened is that we have added another one person to our triad. But the way tribes work is logarithmic. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at it, it is not just 4 people. It is actually 4 different triads.
Right.
And when we start doing that, when we go to 4, when we go to 3, we have 1 triad. When we add one person and we connect them to everybody else so that they're actually literally supporting the success of the other, we have 4 triads. If we add a 5th person, we have 10 triads. If we add a 6th person, we have 20 triads, and 20 is the base number for tribe.
Right.
So all you have to do is put 6 really highly triangulated people in your environment, and you have actually created the basis of your tribe.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That's the logarithmic, that was the stunning logarithmic, I can have 6 that are attached to me, hub and spoke. And I am exhausted trying to manage and dominate 6 other people. Or we can be all triangulated and everybody connected to everybody else. And we've got a tribe and we've got all of this power.
And is this all in your book, the Tribal Leadership book?
It is to a certain degree. I didn't write the text of that book. A fellow named Dave Logan did. And he had a kind of an understanding of triads, but not really a deep understanding, so it didn't happen. What he understood was he understood the cultural map and the structural map. He had heard me deliver on that for years, and he heard about triads, but he wasn't triading. So the thing about it is, if you're not triading, you don't get it. And the thing about it, Melody, is that if you can just have 3 people hanging around a cool idea, if we are not actually engaged in a common vision and a common mission, and we have taken it on and we are supporting each other, all we are is 3 people hanging around a cool idea. That's called a trio. Mm-hmm. And what that devolves to is a kind of a defensive posture that Jung talked about, that we learned when we were probably in junior high, which is called troika. And troika is when, okay, what I do is I get Melody and the 2 of us gang up on Brett. So it becomes scapegoating. But then we get Brett, John, and Melody actually all organized around a single vision and working from our own point of view, making sure of the success of the other 2 in it. We have a triad, and that's what a partnership is. And as Brett says, it's part of an ecology that you're creating. It's an environment. So leaders are ecologists.
Brilliant.
So my mind is really starting to be blown in the sense of, good, I'm breaking through some of these ideas, but I feel like I really will need to listen to this again carefully and just sort of absorb it, because of just whatever the cultural training I've had about this sort of solo sort of approach.
Yeah. Well, you've got an MBA or the
actually, well, it's actually a PhD in mythology.
Yeah,
so,
no, but I mean, no, I'm talking about something different. You have the social equivalent of an MBA in management.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about the difference of management and true leadership.
Yeah, but this is a different thing. And here's the deal. Virtue forms character, character unfolds destiny. If what you're doing is you're forming relationships one-on-one, you're building, but you can only go to a certain point, and you can only manage about 6 or 7 of those at a time.
And
however, if you are triading, triading is a virtue. And what it does is it builds your character, which in fact is your tribe. And that tribe unfolds your destiny.
If I heard correctly, so again, I'm absorbing this, it sounds like very critically, to get to the tribe and to have these triads, you've got to have a vision or a mission that you're aligned in. Does it have to be spoken and identified, or is it sort of like, oh, we're all on the same page because we want people to be empowered? I mean,
well, that would be a fairly weak way, and I wouldn't really talk too much about how well stuck together it would be. And it would actually have you devolving into management conversations. Management conversations are about commitment, responsibility, accountability, and integrity.
Mhm.
But you know, if you're working with people that are working at a really high level, if I was working with Brett, Brett works at a very high level. And if I was having, and I was Brett's coach, which I'm not, but if I were Brett's coach, and I was now saying, well, Brett, that sounds like an integrity issue, or you're not being responsible or accountable, or you're not committed. All of those conversations are insulting to Brett because he's already mastered those areas. Brett is interested in conversations that are about vision and mission and goals and accomplishments. So the area of interest for Brett is way more interesting. So if I'm talking to, let's say Brett is training for the Olympics. I don't talk to Olympians about commitment or responsibility. That's insulting to them, or integrity, because they're actually living their lives and have handled that. You talk to them about the vision. You talk to them about the mission. So our conversation is in a different arena. And when you are having triadic conversations, you're having conversations in the arena of vision, mission, goals, and accomplishments, as opposed to commitment, integrity, responsibility, and accountability.
So it sounds like what you're saying is whether if the three of us were having that kind of conversation, we don't necessarily have to say, what is our mission? We're just naturally talking about what we're up to. Is that what you're saying?
No, I am saying we are actually always saying and always inquiring into what is our mission.
Yeah.
We're doing
And-
that. That is, what's our mission today?
Right.
What are we going to accomplish today? That's our conversation. We come to each other. We've already answered the question, who am I and who are my partners? And we are engaged in a couple of other conversations called, what are we building together? That's our mission and our vision. What are we building together? And then who do we touch? Which is the noble cause.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can actually, as Brett said, authentically engage the question of what is genuine authenticity in leadership.
Yeah.
Brett?
Well, guys, I am extremely sorry to do this. The banging on my door is an emergency.
Okay.
My apartment is flooding the downstairs.
Oh, you need to stop that.
So I can't believe worse timing could happen, but I'm so sorry.
Oh, believe me, this has been incredibly value, and there's so much here already that don't feel bad at all. I think it's fantastic, and we can always have you back for another session as well at some point.
Exactly.
I would love it, and I'm sorry I've been distracted. I've got my phone going crazy and the door going crazy, and apparently my apartment is flooding. So
no problem. Just thank you so much for being here. Yeah, you can go on, and John and I'll wrap up here, and we'll see you.
Bye. Bye, my friend. We will see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So good.
Oh, yeah, that is fantastic. And I really do. I just am so clear that it's like the gap was bridged, like how to get there. I have these ideas, and I can definitely see what's been missing.
Okay, let me stop the recording for right now, but that's like really brilliant, and then we'll